bricks on the screen, healthcare in between. Physics, art, and math got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive. Blended facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need bridge blues we sing to the future memory. Health and science in the mix. Midbridge got the fix. Complex subjects made
right
clear.
now
Every episode
in ways that we actually acquire knowledge and ways that make me more efficient.
In the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams. Through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
Thank you so much for joining with me. It is truly an honor and a privilege.
MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming.
Hey, welcome to the MedBix Webcast. This is Ramana Annam Raju. I'm the host. Welcome. Yesterday I had a great talk with a rural nurse from North Dakota, and she sent me a beautiful note and saying that she enjoyed very much my podcast. Thank you, Mrs. Sanford, Dr. Sanford. But the upcoming guest, actually. I met him. He is a highly qualified. His qualifications are a spin my head. He's a triple boarded, and he's an oncologist, internal medicine oncologist, integrated lifestyle medicine. Interesting. You see that? He is a holistic health also. He is back in my home, same woods from my area, same areas as I am from. But he's a military officer in the Air Force Reserve, and then think about it, he's not stopping. And then he contested as a U.S. Congress as a Republican candidate from Kansas, Mission, Kansas. Unfortunately, it was very close call, but he lost it. But now he's practicing oncologist and he's an active military officer. So he has a lot of opinions, very interesting opinions, and he has a clear path for the policies of the healthcare. We need doctors. I always talk with the Dr. Robert Pearl, former head of the Kaiser. We talk about it. We talk about that. We need a leadership, strong leadership, who has a heart, brain, and spine. Most likely, this Dr. Prasanth Reddy. Joining from Mission, Kansas, you may have all of those three. So let me invite him to the table. Welcome, Dr. Reddy. Welcome to the MedBix Webcast.
Thank you, Ramana. It's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you.
Yeah, you're always great. I met you in Washington, D.C. It was a great meeting you. Let me ask you, just give me your journey up to this point briefly, if you can go through your journey a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you mentioned, I think you mentioned a lot of my journey already, but I'm a hem-onc physician. I trained in the Kansas City area at the University of Kansas, and that's where I finished my medical school training as well as my internal medicine and clinical hematology oncology fellowship training. I also did a research year in nuclear medicine, focused on high-risk prostate cancer, did a master's in public health through a K30 NIH fellowship focused on high-risk prostate cancer and why African-American men tend to do worse than their counterparts. And of course, the findings that I had were not that surprising in the sense that there's a combination both of biological differences as well as social determinants of health. And I've had the opportunity to practice medicine for nearly 20 years, both in the military, but also as an oncology physician in various practice locations, both in private practice, managed care, where I led a service line, and then also briefly in academics as well. So And I think those experiences shape our lives. And certainly, I've also had the opportunity to work in industry, both in precision medicine, personalized medicine, foundation medicine, based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, where we kind of commercialized the Human Genome Project, so cancer patients could benefit, and help physicians and industry with decision support and how to build better therapeutics, and get those therapeutics into the hands of patients for more precise and more effective care. So, and then most recently, as you mentioned, I did lead the oncology service line at Labcorp globally, both across the diagnostics and drug development businesses. And so that gave me an opportunity to look at a global view and think about, how does personalized and precision healthcare, and things like clinical trials access, impact human health.
Reddy, if you don't mind, just a small. There is a fan going on in front of you. That fan is causing some kind of fan. Fan is a lot of shades are coming up. It's just a
Let me see, Ramana. Let
some
me
fan
see if
is yeah.
maybe I can just turn off the background. It's just I'm in a
Yeah,
hotel.
I can
So
turn on the
apologies.
background. It's giving some problem there.
Let me see here. I'm gonna figure this out here. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. It's a little distracting, and that's why. You're there's three dots there. Virtual background is none.
Yeah.
You can go to video, and virtual
Got it.
background is none. Yeah.
Let's see.
The,
Well, it's not
the,
quite letting
so
me.
maybe I can
There
do
it is. There it is. I see it, Raman. I see
it.
it. So video settings there.
Yeah.
Social webcam. Well, actually, it's kind of preventing me, Ramana. So, let's see.
There is none. There is a screens there. One of the screen is blank screen.
Huh.
I don't know whether I can do that or not.
Extra camera presentation. Yeah, I'm struggling to find.
Okay, that's okay. So there is now it is better a little bit if you can move. This position is okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is we can manage it. If we don't move too much, is okay. Yeah, now it's better a little bit.
Got it. Got
So
it.
I'm going to ask you a tough question that people dodge this question all the times. Nobody answers me. Neither Republicans nor Democrats nor Independents. Everybody was is it healthcare should be a right or a privilege? What do you think? Which way you think about it?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's a balance, right? I certainly think it's a right. You can go back to the Declaration of Independence, and there's this phrase, right, that we all know: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, how can we have life without health? How can we have freedom if we're unhealthy?
Yeah.
And how can we pursue happiness if we're unhealthy? So even in the founding documents, you can make an argument without good health, you won't be able to, live that American dream. So I do think, at a certain level, there is a right to healthcare. And, there's, certainly you can make an argument. You can even go to Maslow's hierarchy and talk about the bare minimum requirements for human beings to survive, and, air, water, food, sleep, shelter, clothing. But beyond that, access to basic medical care is something that I think we should strive for as a society.
The balance is, I think, where is that balance? Just explain to me, I'm going to be tough on you a little bit. Where
Sure.
that balance? You give me some quantifiable terms, Dr. Reddy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the key here is find areas that we can come together and all agree on. So by that, I mean, what are the things that government can do that maybe individuals can't do? For me, I believe in conservatism, and I believe in the power of individuals. And so, but that doesn't mean that that we can all do the same thing that governments can do. So there's certainly a role for government in shaping how individuals can live their best lives.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is where we have to align and figure out what is the role of government? How does government come into improving human life for their constituents? And a good example is public health, right? If you look at public sanitation, I may want to go, dig a sewer, but if I'm working within my community, it's very hard without, the help of my local government and to think about how do we get public sanitation. And honestly, and we talked about this in the past, Roman, public sanitation and public health, having places where people can safely live has been one of the most important things to improve and expand human life expectancy. So there's definitely a role of how we can improve healthcare through government.
Dr. Reddy, I used to place, let us talk about rural health a little bit. I'm also a fan of rural health. I place doctors, J1 physicians across the country. I travel to places in the United States where there's no water there. Bradshaw, West Virginia, we used to carry the water there. I was in the mountains. I was in the Tennessee mountains. I was Georgia cornfields, Georgia fields, peanut farms. I went to do, all over the whole country. I placed doctors in, Bakersfield and Fresno. So there is the rural people that I met a woman that she didn't have ultrasound. She's a seventh month. She didn't get ultrasound because there is nobody available there. We are providing at the time diagnostic services. I am the one. I went there all the way to provide that diagnostic services. It is such an advanced country. Why we have this problem providing a care for urban and rural areas where everybody is concentrating on big cities and then who are doing very well? Why we are not focusing on where we stand on that one? Let's ask that first of all. That is the question.
Yeah, it's a great question, and certainly we can do better, right? 20 cents out of every dollar is spent on healthcare. Yet we still have, to your point, pretty disparate healthcare outcomes. And so it is a problem. And I think the first step to tackling any problem is recognizing that there's a problem. If you don't recognize that there's a problem, then you're never going to fix the problem. So that's the first step, is to recognize. And I do think, broadly today, in society, I think, in America, people recognize that we have to fix our healthcare system. It truly is broken in many ways, and it certainly can do better than what we do today. We have to do better for patients. And so particularly for rural healthcare, I'm excited because of the power of technology. So for me, it's, when we talk about healthcare access, part of healthcare access can be enabled through technology, right? We even saw it through COVID, right? When we look at other mechanisms of engaging patients, through, for example, telemedicine, or through, other digital monitoring systems, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many interesting advances and innovations in technology that I think we can start to bridge that gap, so that no matter where you live, no matter what your income level is, there's at least an opportunity to engage in the healthcare system. And you need that. You need engagement. That's the first step.
Let us talk about digital health. That is a great thing. It's not digital health. The people may misunderstand. It's like transferring data information and analyzing data. But actually, it is used in the diagnosis and used in the treatment and the prognosis. In all areas, they are used. For example, when we are talking about now, we got a sensory perception that you can see that from using by iPhone. You can put a probe there and you can do ultrasound on it. You can do other things on so many things. Then you can also, by nowadays, a new concept coming, blood pressure you can measure. You can do temperature. You can do a lot of things. It's doing the diagnosis and treatment, mental health. For example, they can give apps that is then can do something with the mental health. So it is so much there. Are we funding that one? Is the AI, this technology, not just leave it to but if Silicon Valley has an opportunity, they won't go to the rural areas. They want to go to the big areas or the rich people there. They want to do. How do you go to the rural and urban areas that they invest in these kind of things?
Well, this is where I do think government can come in and play a role, right? We have to incent behavior. So that's the basis of economics, is to generate value. And the way you generate values is to meet unmet need. And so you got to create incentives to kind of encourage people to apply, their innovations where it's really desperately needed. So,
Yeah.
I will just share with you that I think, again, when I think about engagement, what you just described is fantastic. These tools can also maybe reduce cost,
Yeah.
right? If you think about primary care in this country, which is that first step of engagement, the primary care physician is a desperately important, part of healthcare. They're in the center of the circle along with patients. And the question is for part of primary care, when, for example, you don't even have primary care in certain rural locations, can we use technology to say, hey, still engage in healthcare, but if you're, have no symptoms and your vital signs are completely normal, still engage with healthcare. So we're tracking that that's the case, so that when something changes, we're able to intervene early. Because as we all know, you and I know, we share some cultural heritage. We always say, an ounce of prevention is worth, a pound of cure. And so this idea of trying to prevent disease I think is also aligned right now, even with the current administration and, Secretary Kennedy's philosophy in trying to prevent chronic illness as opposed to trying to treat chronic illness. And another challenge I throw out there for all of these innovators, including Silicon Valley, is who cares about your innovation if it doesn't get into the hands of patients?
Yeah.
So we often have great innovations, but then we don't implement that into our healthcare system, so it's making the kind of impact we really need it to.
Sometimes the bureaucratic process, right? Reimbursement structures. There is a lot of the challenges there with these people, and Silicon Valley don't understand who pays for it, who does it. They go blind and they think that they can solve the problem. That is another situation here. So, digital health certainly can help. That is a way really empower people in the rural areas, and really we can save lives. The other one is the specialist. Primary care, you solve that problem, but how do you solve? You're in Kansas, 4 hours away from Kansas City, in a rural area. You're an oncologist, cancer specialist. You are. So tell us, what do you think of specialty care? How do we should, as a country, to deliver the care?
Yeah, it's also an interesting thing, right? Like, for example, for me personally, I believe that clinical trials, even in specialty care, like I'm an oncologist and spent, a good chunk of my life, innovating for personalized and precision medicine, genomics, multiomics, and clinical trials. Well, just as a simple example, we need to get trials to where people are. It ties into social determinants of health. If somebody can't drive 5 miles in Kansas City to get on a clinical trial, how is somebody in central Kansas going to drive 300 miles? And so we have to figure out, how do we think about technology and some of these innovations to enable patients to get access to the best care possible. And that includes things like clinical trials. So when we think about specialists, we used to talk about, incenting primary care physicians to go to rural areas by paying off their debts, their medical school debts. My personal opinion, and I've shared this publicly, with leaders in Congress as well, is that we should think about ways to get trialists that, have deep community roots and that want to go back to their communities, not to check off a box because they're getting their debts paid off, but because that's where they grew up and that's what they love. They love that community. They love their friends and family. That's that connection that we all need as humans, where it's a deeper connection than just paying off a loan. But it certainly helps when you're getting tons and tons of debt to then incent those folks to say, hey, if you can be a trialist in a rural area or an area that doesn't have access to clinical trials, maybe that's going to encourage confidence within the industry to say, hey, we have trialists where people are. So it's okay that we can accrue patients on trial in those community sites where 70% of patients still live. And then again, most importantly, that's how maybe one mechanism where they get access to the latest innovations.
Let us just talk along those lines. You said that people from the community that you wanted to recruit, that's first thing you need them to go to medical school. if they give admissions, these elite kind of people, these admission schools, giving to some foreigners, they don't even know who are those people or where they're coming from. The cultural backgrounds are different. I'm not saying I'm talking against my own culture in that sense. It is important for them to give to the local people first priority, and then there is a gaps there, we can always do that. The admission itself is a problem, as problematic in the medical schools. I will take your.
Yeah, my view on that is that I do believe, having, merit, which is, again, people will argue what that means. I think that should be the key criteria. We should always encourage folks that have the biggest likelihood, the highest likelihood, to come and, help, patients where they're underserved, help drive innovation in medical science. Of course, we should promote and support those folks to get those opportunities to get into medicine. So I guess I would blunt that a little bit, Ramana. I would say it's not so much for me that whether people from all over the world come into our institutions. I think that's a positive. I think what we got to be careful about is, having folks that come from all over the world come to these institutions because they come from privilege. And that is a dangerous thing, because many of these institutions, they get lots of donations from very powerful people from all over the world. And that should not be a criteria for, getting entrance into some of these elite institutions. And I do think we should do better supporting, American kids, giving them an opportunity to live their American dream first.
With all the tools, AI tools, digital health tools, you don't need extraordinary Albert Einsteins there to do the provide a primary care. In my view, you can reasonably provide a primary care without extraordinary talents of the Einstein. I think it's more important, in my view. I differ with you a little bit there. I think local people should be given preference. But let us move on. That next question on the another one. One of the things is that, that one of the cost, we talked about it, cost. Why there is uncontrolled cost of this healthcare system? Is it a chronic disease? What are the problems? Right now, we have a big problem with the chronic diseases. Tell us a little bit about the chronic diseases, maintenance, and the cost of that one. Just give us a rundown on that one, if you don't mind.
In certain ways, we're victims of our own success. And so, by that I mean, if we were, eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, we wouldn't live to have a chronic illness. Fortunately, because of science and because of public-private partnership and industry and innovation and, the amazing contributions from individuals from all over the world, we've advanced science so people can live long enough to have these chronic illnesses. The issue still, though, becomes we need to do a better job in incenting healthy behaviors. And again, I would just go back, to Secretary Kennedy. I do believe that that's core to some of his beliefs, is one of the most important ways to limit chronic illness is to focus on prevention. And you mentioned earlier, I'm trained in integrative medicine. And in integrative medicine, we focus a lot less on Western principles such as, say, molecular biology or pathology. And, that's been most of my life is molecular biology and understanding signal transduction pathways and what drives cancer. But on the flip side, to take care of the whole person, and this is a weakness in Western medicine, we don't have systems set up where we allow for diet, healthy eating, exercise, spirituality, mental health. We don't allow for these hugely important elements of what makes us human and what makes us whole to be part of our medical health care. And so that is something that needs to be fixed. And I certainly am a huge proponent of that. But we need time, and we need to think about how do we incent folks to take charge of their own health.
Yeah.
And that is very, very, very important.
I agree with you 100% on that one, because the prevention is, as you said, that one of the preventive measures is the food as a medicine. Food is the tell us in India, my father was a teacher, Ayurvedic doctor, and Indian, the allopathic doctor. Prevention was the first and foremost for him. Then after that, he can do the injections and all those things. But in those days, but my, what do you think of the role of food in the prevention?
It is arguably the foundation of preventing illness.
Yeah.
The more we learn about the microbiome, the gut microbiome, and that is heavily influenced by our diet,
Yeah.
it is core to improving healthcare. In fact, you can make an argument, even looking at the food pyramid. Part of the reason why government kind of failed the U.S. population is that the food pyramid got people to eat so many carbohydrates that now we have like this epidemic of diabetes in the country. The bottom line is this: food absolutely prevents disease. Diets high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats. These are the kinds of things that, even more than a pill, will prevent heart disease, prevent type 2 diabetes, prevent cancers, prevent dementia, right? I mean, it's critical that we understand that. The truth is that even more so than even exercise, diet, food as a medicine is critical. And then, of course, you can use food not just to prevent disease, but we can use food to treat or reverse disease. There's been plenty of studies looking at, for example, plant-based or low-carb diets to reverse diabetes. Unfortunately, I have diabetes myself, and I can tell
Yeah,
you when
you told me that.
it
You're a
basically.
very healthy military officer, and tell us a little bit that what is a genetic factors you think is involved in these kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Most of life is a combination of environment and genetics. And so, there are certain things that are in our control, and there are certain other things that are out of our control. But that's life. And so when that happens, we shouldn't complain about our genetic predisposition. It is what it is. We have no control over that. So we should focus as individuals, as patients, over the things that we do have control over. And so don't worry about the things that we don't have control over. And certainly diet is one of those things, right? There's great diets out there, DASH, Mediterranean diets, gluten-free diets that can certainly help, treat and even reverse disease.
Yeah.
And, it is really important. And I think we're only going to get smarter, as we prioritize doing research focused on food as medicine.
One of the biggest ingredient of this food is the sugar. Why can't governments can do executive order, say, we need all the processed food, 50% is cut off from the sugar. It's basically mind, right? The sweetness is a more you eat, more you want it sweet, or, that is a problem right there. So I think government can play a role in the public policy can play a role in the controlling these processed foods, right?
Yeah, for sure. And again, I just, go back and, I'll just highlight that Secretary Kennedy's focused on doing
Yeah,
things like this, right?
he is very good in that area. I agree with you.
Limiting, unnecessary, ingredients that are designed to almost addict people to some of these, bad chemicals that we don't need in our diet. This is a great thing. And by the way, this idea of food as medicine is not new. You can go all the way back to Hippocrates.
Yeah.
And there's a quote from Hippocrates that he says, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food."
Yeah.
That's like, 400 years BC.
Years ago.
And so this is not new, and this is not necessarily rocket science. We just have to have the will as individuals, as society, and as a government to help drive and enforce what are priorities. And certainly, I think many of us would agree that food as medicine is an important concept.
Yeah. Let us, let us talk about the one more thing, and then after that, I come back. One more thing is that about the reimbursements for doctors, Medicaid cuts. Everybody's worried about. Doctors are worried about it. Patients are worried. Where do you stand on that one, Dr. Reddy?
Yeah, so
Get you in trouble, so.
I'm a little bit biased. I'm a doctor, as you mentioned, right? I personally think, physician reimbursement as as an expense to the overall healthcare system is not what people think. The truth is that physician reimbursement is probably, depending on how you do the numbers, and I'm also a Harvard Business alum, and so the truth is that physician and clinical services probably account for about 20% of healthcare costs. Mm-hmm. Hospital care is about 30% of healthcare costs. But physician reimbursement directly is only about 8 to 10% of total national health expenditures. Yeah. And so that should give you an idea that when people have this idea that it's just physician, salaries that are, causing this issue, that is just not true. There's a lot of other things that were built into the U.S. healthcare spending system: hospital care, prescription drugs, administrative costs, nursing care, long-term care, other healthcare costs like labs and home care, et cetera, that are part of that overall pie. And personally, I think physician reimbursement is not what it's made out to be. And it disappoints me that, people that do sacrifice a good chunk of their life trying to take care of, their neighbors, their families, their fellow citizens are sometimes besmirched as being, greedy or, making too much money, when a lot of us, spend, a good number of our years trying to train to be able to, help the U.S. get, healthier.
Dr. Reddy, I'm a physicist first, so I'm going to do some quantum physics, and it's a little bit of medicine there. You may like it. You're an engineer. You may like it a little bit. So actually, after that, I come back and ask you about the cancer. Why it is growing. You're an oncologist. You're in the forefront of that, delivering the care. And then, what is your next future goals of your life? What are you thinking about political and professional life? I will ask you. So let me present this one. You can jump in anytime you want to. This is your free. So that's a Dr. Prasanth Reddy. He's joining from Mission, Kansas. He is triple boarded and a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. And then now he is a former head of the Labcorp in the oncology department. Let me give you a little bit different take on this one. Quantum physics. Quantum mechanics in the biology, in the body, there is a belief among the scientific community, quantum mechanics cannot happen in wet and warm place like a human body. That was a strong belief. It is true. But research is showing nature found its own subway system, found a tricky way to implement the quantum mechanics in the body. That is a very interesting concept that we're going to, they look like a chakras, right? That's very interesting aspect of it. What are those quantum physics ideas? The two particular ideas are relevant here. One is that I always provide this example of a mouse and a cheese. Mouse is if we have a maze, how the mouse reaches the maze through different trial and error, keep coming back, hit the wall, going back and keep trying, and that is one way. That's a classical way of trying. Quantum way is take all possible paths at the same time. That's a counterintuitive idea. It's not our idea is not, they're not there. Counterintuitive idea is this mouse splits into all possible ghost mouses and travel all of them same time and go to fix the path of the fastest path. That's a quantum computers does that actually. There's a principle of quantum computers. So taking all possible paths, that's one thing in quantum mechanics. And the second one is tunnel throw. A low energy to high energy, water going from bottom to the top. You never see water flows from top to bottom. It never goes to the bottom to the top. Here is a tunnel throw, low energy to high energy. Somebody goes through a wall. We don't think anybody can go through the wall, but it happens at the micro level. It happens. They go through a wall. A lower energy, they can go through the higher energy, travel to the higher energy level. It's called tunneling, quantum tunneling. It is a strangest phenomena, counterintuitive idea, but it works. But in 1921, the photoelectric effect was there. This is a fundamental science behind this concept. The inventor in 1921, Albert Einstein got the Nobel Prize for photoelectric effect. He did not get the Nobel Prize for the special relativity. He got it for photoelectric effect. It's very simple. when the photons falling on the solar panel, it converts them into the photons convert into the chemical energy, or is electrical current, current energy, photoelectric effect. It actually happens same thing in the eye. When the photons fall on the eye, it becomes a photo. Then it become a electrochemical components and go back to the visual cortex. They travel to the visual cortex. All the electrochemical signals. So this is the fundamental science physics behind it is same for the Albert Einstein. He got the Nobel Prize for that, because he defined the quanta physics. The light is a quanta, a discrete particles. So I'm going to talk about very interesting aspects of quantum physics coming into the quantum sight, quantum smell, quantum breathing, quantum mind. In all of the areas, you will see quickly, very, very short presentation. I, as a tremendous highest, I is a far more efficient than solar battery. Both work on the same principle, but so efficient. It is a 98% efficient than only solar battery is 50% efficiency. I can detect a single photon in the right conditions. Single photon. You need it to make any change in the solar battery. You need billions of photons falling on it to see any change. So that's extraordinary. Does that is a marvelous, a mysterious it is. But how do you explain that thing? The classical way to explain is very difficult. So information travel is through information travel, it does quantum tunneling. When the photons fall on the retina, it becomes that electrochemical signals, they become ions, travel back to the visual cortex. When they travel, they lower energy to higher energy, they pass through. Not only that, they take all possible paths. So it goes to the fastest way to the visual cortex, all possible paths. So it is cutting down the time, right? It's not trial and error anymore. It is doing all possible. So it will find the shortest path and goes there. That is ice mysterious. The sight works in a quantum physics. Nature found a subway system. Bypass, they can implement the quantum mechanics without even a wet atmospheres, warm and wet places. They can exhibit quantum behavior. The second one is, I can tell you, that is a site, quantum site. The quantum smell is a northern Italian wines. There are southern Italian wines. Some people can tell the difference. That I'm not a wine drinker, but so some people who are very good at wine, they can tell the differences, very subtle differences. But the most important, I'm going to tell you, if you have a regular musk, that musk fragrance, if you do fragrance, that is a very sweet and clean. That's fragrance. The same one, if you take the musk, deuterated musk means this is a chemically exactly same, heavy water basically. Deuterated means heavy water. If you take the same musk with the deuterated water, the regular water here on the left side, chemically exactly same, but it smells different. That classical physics cannot explain, chemistry cannot explain why that smell is different. What they found out is very interesting. What they found out is the reason was we only have a 360 receptors genes in the nose, and then we can distinguish smells up to 10,000 smells, maybe more. This is a lock and key mechanism. Molecule from the fragrance goes there and lock and key mechanism. So it recognizes 360, but we do 10,000 smells. It doesn't make sense. Math is not working. So what they found is molecular vibration, quantum tunneling. These molecules vibrate. Heavy deuterium molecule vibrates slow. The regular waters vibrate faster. Then when they match, these vibrations are matching. So is a quantum mechanics, molecular vibrations is a key for the quantum tunneling process. Lock and key mechanism. Beyond that, it's a molecular vibrations. Quantum tunneling happens in the smell. That's what they found out. Then that is a quantum smell. That is quantum breathing. Doctor, you may know more about that. Enzyme, quantum tunneling, breathing, for example, cells produce carbon dioxide. Then carbon dioxide then converted into bicarbonate and hydrogen. I'm not a chemistry guy. Sorry if I do say wrong. You can correct me. But I'm just trying to explain the quantum process. Then to become the reason it is breaking up into two, to make that travel, to carry this carbon dioxide to the lungs, it breaks into two parts. That breaking rate has to be so good. So it is a 10,000. If you do not have a quantum tunneling, it is only do 0.01, 1.1 per second. With the quantum tunneling, it is 100,000 per second. It does that split, that from a carbon dioxide to split, and then they go back to the lungs and they recombine again. That is also quantum tunneling. It does. Then you can breathe out all the carbon dioxide there. If it is not there, we will be poisoned. We will be dead with the carbon dioxide poisoning. So there is a Judith Kleinman got she didn't get the Nobel Prize, but she got the U.S. award from the UC Berkeley. She got the award for there. So quantum. This is a quantum mind. The last one I'm going to talk about quantum mind consciousness. This is a little bit about the quantum. Roger Penrose is a quantum physicist, and Stewart Hameroff is an anesthesiologist actually from Phoenix, Arizona. They came up with a new idea how the awareness and consciousness, how the new mind comes out in the microtubules. Microtubules are part of in the neuron. They're like train tracks in the neuron. They carry nutrients in the cell, in the neurons, in the cell itself. They're like a railway tracks. They take they carry the things, but not only they carry, they do quantum computation, quantum things they do. That's what they proposed it. Then people thought it is they were thought is like a cuckoo thing, but in fact recently it came out very strong evidence for that. It is called orchestrated objective reduction. Is a OR, coordinated collapse of the wave function. That's a quantum physics has a wave function, which is a wave and particle. It collapses in the microtubules in the neuron, and then it becomes real. We don't know what the reality is. It becomes real in our brain. But what they found is a coordinated response from all the cells. But there is another one they found out. The super radiance is an experimentally actually confirmed coordinated emission of light. In the brain, there is a light comes out. I didn't know that. Weak light is called super radiance. Recent 2025 paper came out. It is called super radiance. It is all cells. They coordinate and emit same time the light. That's a very strange phenomena. That's one of the examples of the quantum exhibit. Super radiance is a quantum phenomena. The coordinated response. Who is orchestrating? We don't know. Possibly, we don't know. That is maybe God, probably. I don't know. I don't want to say anything for a scientist, but that is where something is happening strange in that one. So our body is a mysterious, mysterious of all in us. There is a quantum physics goes inside of us. So that is a one thing. It's a very promising field. It's a speculative, but it is also a lot of evidence is coming up, and see how the nature works in mysterious ways, and that mystery within us. Thank you for watching. Let me bring my friend Dr. Reddy back to the table. Yeah.
No, that's very, very fascinating, Ramana. That's very fascinating, and I will tell you a couple of things that are intriguing to me about what you just presented there. Number one, research matters. As a public policy, it is critical that we continue to fund research. Number two, kind of the foundation of MedBricks is how does multidisciplinary, collaboration lead to solutions. And number three, what I would say is that there is no doubt that we need to translate the basic science into practical science. And that is kind of the difference between, say, physics and, say, engineering, or, say, molecular biology and, say, cancer medicine. We're translating basic understanding into clinical applications impacting humans, impacting practical questions in society. So as I see, as you kind of, made those connections, I think those are really cool things for people to understand. I mean, and it certainly, I did some nuclear medicine, research. So I'm not a radiologist, but sometimes I pretend to be one. And then of course, we have our colleagues in radiation oncology as well. And the photoelectric effect, and I know you worked in imaging for a number of years, very important for X-ray imaging. Yeah. And, it's actually the difference in, substances like, materials that have calcium versus materials that don't, that lead to that different contrast that allows you to see, differences between materials and X-rays. And so that's kind of cool. And, certainly we use this in cancer all the time. It's important in things like mammography. And then, of course, our radiation oncology colleagues, it's important for them for brachytherapy and targeted radiation. So I think that's super cool. I actually am very interested in that. And the quantum principles you mentioned, I know tunneling has also been, it's a little bit outside of my scope. I'm certainly no expert, but I know that people are exploring whether quantum tunneling can actually lead to proton shifts in DNA bases.
Yes.
And that can cause mutations and
enzyme things.
Levels. Yeah. That's what causes cancer, right? And so it's very intriguing.
Yeah. Thank you for compliment for the MedBricks. You're a multidisciplinarian. You're the fields that look so different. Actually, if you think about it, they're all one and the same. You're a military officer, you're a medical oncologist, lifestyle medicine, and I'm providing this mathematics and physics and chemistry. Innovation requires those kind of fields, and I try my best to provide those kind of things. Thank you for the compliment. Just let you take on the multidisciplinary thinking.
Yeah, it's critical, right? I can tell you in cancer medicine, a lot of folks don't realize this, but in breast cancer, for example, it takes a multidisciplinary team. So, just this week, I saw a number of breast cancer patients. And so, but when a patient comes in, I tell them something very basic framework. First question you have to answer, what do I have? Second question you have to answer, where is it? Part of that is, what's my stage? Third question that you have to answer is, what are we going to do about it? But we don't answer question number 3 without answering questions 1 and 2. Yeah. And that is, in many ways, is multidisciplinary, right? I have to rely on my pathology colleagues. I have to rely on my radiology colleagues, right? And then to make a treatment decision in cancer medicine, folks don't realize, many of them, that there's medical oncologists like me. We give systemic therapies, drugs. There's radiation oncologists who give radiation. And then there's surgical oncologists, which provide, the ability to, cut out or remove, cancers. And so it really takes all 3 groups of physicians when we're making treatment decisions to ultimately tell, a patient, a woman who's dealing with breast cancer, let's say, what is the right treatment for you?
That is absolutely. So one of the things that, a lot of times the medicine people, the biggest problem in Silicon Valley is, Dr. Reddy, is that the IT industry people think they without knowing anything about medicine, they want to implement medicine things. That's one of the failures we saw. EMR, they dumped on all of the doctors, and they really did not. The productivity didn't go up, anything goes up. But if the other way around, if the doctors come to know about the multidisciplinary, the results will be fantastic, in my view. That's one of the reasons I started this channel, to explain to the doctors, because I understand them. I think learning this multidisciplinary thinking helps the innovation. So just I'll let you comment on that.
Yeah. So, and again, I've had the fortune in my life to work with big data sets, one of the companies I worked at called Foundation Medicine. We did a lot of groundbreaking research, published hundreds of papers, on the genetics, the genomics of cancer. And a lot of it was descriptive, because it's very early, our evolution, our understanding what drives cancer is still rapidly, changing. And so the bottom line there is it's not just the data sets. You got to ask the right questions. And that, speaks to what you just pointed out. So there's a lot of folks on the IT side who are colleagues, but they have data, but you got to ask the data the right questions. Let me back up. The first question is to have high quality data, right? And so without high quality data, you can't ask the data set any questions. But a lot of things, as we evolve into machine learning and AI, well, even AI and machine learning sits on data. And the first step, and people get confused between data science and say AI or machine learning, but you got to have the right data sets to train the AI. And so the first step is how do we get the right data sets and how do we ensure quality? And some of that also impacts, access to good care. I'll give you an example. In one of my marketing classes, actually in business school, we talked about, access to trials. And if you look at, say, a pathway that's important in lung cancer, EGFR, well, the percentage of patients that have non-small cell lung cancer that are Asians that are EGFR positive is like 50%, approximately. Caucasians is 20%. Well, what if I design trials that doesn't take that into account? Well, you're going to get skewed results, right? We won't understand at a population level some of these things if we don't test everybody in the population. And that's a bad data set. And if I have a bad data set and I conclude, what insights I'm going to extract, it may be faulty insights. So it's really important that we take that into account.
Well, that is very important, as you said, that, just recruiting patients, that wide variety, understanding the data, and that's where the healthcare professionals play a critical role, in fact, recruiting patients in even the clinical trials. Let us ask about a little bit, physics cancer question. In physics, as you know, you're an engineer, we have four forces. Albert Einstein died 30 years to unify all the forces into one and make sure there is only one cause to solve the problem. In cancer, is all, I hear that's not possible. That is, is it possible that one day we can find out through AI or machine intelligence, we can find out one day the root cause, the day that starts it, that cause? You think that signal will, is it possible or not? I mean, is it a right way to go about cancer
Yes,
research?
it's a very important question. I'll tell you, we've learned over many years, the power of oncogenes, both tumor suppressors as well as oncogenic drivers. And so there are certain genes like TP53, which is like a master regulator for the cell cycle, that if it's disrupted, you take away that break, you may have an increased risk of cancer. And so the challenge for cancer, the unifying principle of cancer is simple, which is a cell that has a program that says it is time to divide, and there are signals both temporally and also with stimuli that tell a cell it's time to divide. When those interpretation of that program gets disrupted and that cell divides when it shouldn't, that is the core unifying principle of cancer, is inappropriate cell division, when you really shouldn't be copying yourself. And that's really the core principle. There are great papers, for example, by scientists Hanahan and Weinberg that looked at multiple causes of cancer, and there's multiple things, right? It's metabolomics, it's logistics, it's like how blood supply gets to cancers, it's metastatic potential, like what are the things that trigger a cell to then say, hey, I'm going to change from staying in one place, still being cancerous, to now saying, hey, I'm going to go far away now and I'm cancerous. And so I do think one day we will. I have hope that we will be able to understand these complexities and distill the complexities, so it's more understandable. But as it stands right now, sometimes cancer is complicated because there's many of those signals. We have the tools, by the way, today. It's like, think of it as you go to your garage and look at your electrical switchboard. Yeah. And we're having all these on-off signals, right? And that's kind of like signal to transduction pathways, which can allow, if one of those signals is always on, allow a cell to divide when it shouldn't. But I have the tools in my hand today. We have it as physicians today to turn off almost all of those circuit breakers. The problem is that if we turn them all off, we turn off the cancer, but maybe we turn off the person too. And that is our struggle, is that, it's trying to find that balance of, how do we figure out for an individual patient what signals are disrupted, and how do we only turn off those signals and only to those cancer cells, and not to normal cells around them, because these transduction pathways are important for life. And so these are the challenges in front of us. But there's no better time than now, Ramana, as you know, to be around, because you know, the therapeutic pipeline, the diagnostics pipeline, and then data science and AI. We're living in an amazing time, and I'm pretty excited about what the next 5, 10, 20 years is going to produce for humanity.
You're a first and foremost provider, cancer specialist. How do you deal with people who diagnosed with cancer? They go through tremendous mental, psychological thing. How do you, as a doctor, go through the emotions? How do you handle the emotions?
Two things that I would tell you. I mean, I think I mentioned to you before, I lost my mom in September of last year. It was very difficult. What I would tell you, though, is I found some peace, because even though I'm also a scientist and I believe in science, but I also believe in spirituality and I believe in God. And some of that peace comes from that belief. The other piece of it is, remember, I remember my mom telling me something very simple: control what you can control. I'm not perfect. No human being is perfect. But when you can care. Not a hard principle, right? And so the core of cancer medicine to me is caring. And so when you come in and you look at the person across the table from you, it doesn't matter whether you're in an elite institution or in a community hospital. What does matter is, do you care? And that you can control. And that is good medicine.
Yeah, very good. So what is your future holds for you? Are you planning to run again? Or are you jump into politics? Or are you going to be, we want you to be Surgeon General? Or what are you looking for? Any position in the FDA or NIH? What are you thinking?
If the time is right and folks ask me to help, I'm happy to help. But at the end of the day, I'll circle back with what, you asked me just a second ago. Try to make a difference in the world. Try to care. And that you can control, and that's all you can do. And so at the end of the day, that's what I'm focused on doing, is, doing the best I can and continuing to be a lifelong learner and continuing to get better and trying to give back to the society.
Dr. Reddy, you're a prime example of, anybody, all the factions can agree on you. A lot of things that you say. It doesn't matter what faction you belong to, either what race you belong to, what religion you belong to. Some of the things that you said, that's people can align with that kind of things. So you're truly an honor to talk with you. It's truly a blessing for me to talk with you. Thank you so much for joining. You're always a frequent guest, and I love to have you anytime. Thank you so much for joining with us.
Yeah, thank you, Ramana. Thank you for what you're doing to bring light to all of these important topics, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.